Hello everyone, my name is Juho Jalkanen, I'm the CEO of Faron Pharmaceuticals. We are a phase 2 immunotherapy company developing a cancer drug that would disarm cancer from its main source of protection and activate our own immune system to fight cancer. I know our story may be familiar to many of you, but there may be also new people to the audience, so let's give a proper introduction to the company. First of all, we will be making forward-looking statements, so standard disclaimer. What can you find in Faron? Actually, it's over 30 years of world-leading science in tumor biology, leukocyte trafficking, put together now into this new drug we're going to talk about. We also have on board some of the most or best expertise in finances for a biotech with our CFO, Yrjö Wickman, and I have to mention recent new recruit Petri Pono, Chief Medical Officer, one of the best people in oncology drug development from Finland. But ultimately, as Antti mentioned in the beginning, this is a global arena, so it can't be done just out of Finland. I want to introduce to you our scientific advisory board, which is absolutely amazing, top names on the planet. These are the people that even big pharma go to ask for advice, and they will be helping us in developing this drug. So, we are a first-in-class anti-clever antibody. Our main mission is to actually establish, it's named bexmarilimab, I'm going to call it Bex. Our main mission is to establish Bex as the cornerstone treatment for all cancers that are Clever-1 positive, and that's actually around 30% of all cancers, so it's a big number. The thing with Clever-1, it's a master regulator, a checkpoint on the macrophage. The purpose of a macrophage is to go around, scavenge debris, foreign matter, bacteria, cancer, if you have it, and eat that, clean up, and present that to the immune system. Now, in a growing cancer, there's a lot of dying cells, a lot of cleaning up to do, and when you have these Clever-1 positive macrophages, the problem is that these macrophages do not present what they eat to the immune system. Instead, they hide away the tumor, and that's how the tumor can grow without the immune system knowing of it. So when you hit Clever-1 with Bex, instead of hiding the tumor, the macrophage starts presenting the tumor to the immune system, and the immune system can attack it. So this drug could be widely applicable to a number of cancers, but the sweet spot really seems to be a disease called MDS, myelodysplastic syndrome, where there's now an accelerated possibility for even approval. I'm going to walk you through that. Well, first of all, on the left-hand side, this is Finnish biobank data. Each dot is a patient. If you're red, you're Clever high expressing. If you're blue, you're Clever low expressing. So basically, everybody in AML and MDS, and these are types of leukemia, everybody is Clever positive. And these cancers, in layman terms, are cancers of the macrophage lineage. So the macrophages have gone wild, all of them are expressing Clever-1, and these are very treatment-resistant cancers, and nothing seems to work in these patients that relapse to standard of care. And here we can really help. So actually, many of you may not know that one of the deadliest cancers of all is relapsed refractory MDS. The prognosis is only 5 to 6 months, which is it's nothing. And the remaining of your life, you're in and out of the hospital, you're deeply anemic, neutropenic, you have constant infections, you need IV antibiotics, you need blood transfusions. So very expensive patients also for the society. And the first line treatment for this population would be an HMA, a hypomethylating agent. It's an old class of drugs, basically a form of chemo. The problem is that 50% do not respond at all to HMAs, and the other half that respond, 80% relapse within a year or two, and after that there's basically no effective treatment option. So let's look into this a bit more in detail. First of all, on the left-hand side, that's currently from Evaluate, an industry-leading market intelligence provider, showing that the MDS market is around 1.1 billion annually, but it's expected to grow up to 4 billion with new drugs coming to the market. Now, basically how the treatment paradigm and patient flows goes is that there's a pretty big prevalent population of MDS. Half roughly is low risk and half is high risk. If you're a low risk patient, you're usually okay with getting growth factors, blood transfusions, erythropoiesis stimulating agents, but ultimately 30 to 40% progress to high risk. And if you're a high risk patient, you need to get to a bone marrow transplant to be cured. Otherwise, it's a deadly condition and aggressively progressing disease. The problem is such a small amount of patients get to a bone marrow transplant. Ultimately, everybody else, so the vast majority, gets on to an HMA, a hypomethylating agent. Again, as I just said, 50% do not respond, and the majority relapse on the treatment. After that, you can try another HMA. There's a couple on the market. You can try conventional chemo, a very old drug named hydroxyurea. There is just one recent approval in this area. It's for an IDH inhibitor, so a targeted therapy for a specific mutation, but that's only around 3 to 5% of the population. It got approval with only 18 patients in phase 2. That's just to show the big need for something new for these patients. So we did a little bit of market research, and here's presented what's available for MDS, basically their cost per month for the patient or the hospital or the society. Just to mention that you see that some of these, or quite a number of these drugs, are not even sold in Europe because the benefit they bring is questionable. But the purpose of this slide that these drugs can be highly priced. So we also went out and asked, well, given the profile of bexmarilimab, what this drug could possibly, be acceptable. And it was shown across the board that a pretty high price is very acceptable in the US being the absolute main market for new drugs. And then we also went out to ask from physicians, doctors treating MDS, would you be likely to prescribe? And this is the estimate, what would the uptake of Bex be in the US? And just to mention, this is now incidence, not prevalent patients, so only new patients coming each year to that prevalent population. So up to 9,000 new patients every year would be treated, and the uptake of something new like Bex would be very quick. So what do we actually bring to the table? Because this is the profile that was presented to the payers and treating physicians in the US. On the left-hand side, it's currently the situation, currently what's available. As mentioned, old, toxic drugs that really do not seem to work. Survival is dismal, and the problem is nobody really gets into remission, and remission is needed to be eligible for a transplant. On the right-hand side is our current phase 2 results. So what have we brought to the table? First of all, since we play with the immune system, get the immune system attacking the cancer, we're not a toxic agent. So the safety profile is very good. It's a well-tolerated drug. We have actually taken that dismal survival of 5.6 months to 13.4 months. And one of the best things with this drug is we bring the majority of patients into remission. And again, remission is the first step to go into a bone marrow transplant. So 20%, give or take, have moved on to get a bone marrow transplant, which is a possibility for cure from this otherwise deadly condition. And the rate limiting thing is not BEX, it's the availability of transplants. So really what we're looking at is a possible game changer for these patients. Since phase 2 is actually coming to its end, and we're going to talk about that, but we took this data to the FDA asking, it's looking good, isn't it? What next? And we proposed a phase 3 in this relapsed refractory setting. What the FDA came back with us was actually that they blessed us with a fast track and said, and phase 3 would not necessarily be required in the relapsed refractory setting, but the phase 2 population could be the registrational population, and there's accelerated approval possibility, but a confirmatory phase 3 should be ran, that's nowadays always needed, should be ran in the frontline high-risk population. So this is basically laying it out, the entire development plan from here to approval according to the discussions with the FDA. A lot of abbreviations, a lot of stuff going on, but just highlighting that in the light blue there, that's the current ongoing phase 2 in relapsed refractory, and that could lead to accelerated approval in this population. And then a confirmatory phase 3 study would be needed in the frontline population, which is a good thing because actually it brings a bigger population to BEX rather quickly. So for us, this was amazing news, and this, of course, has attracted the eye of pharma as well. But from the eyes of an investor, like I said, a lot of stuff going on this slide. So let's look at it from a different angle. So these are the key highlights that are coming next from that slide. There'll be further phase 2 data coming out at the American Society for Hematology just in a short time. We already released the top line data, and it was as expected at 80% response rate. We are on track of having the phase 2 enrollment completed in January, and 2 to 3 months after that, we will have the first response rate readout. Then we'll go into an end of phase 2 meeting with the FDA and seeking breakthrough designation as well. With the positive phase 2 meeting, that would actually kickstart the phase 3. And ultimately, as the survival and follow-up data comes in from the current phase 2, we could possibly start talking the accelerated approval of BEX with the FDA. Fast tracks allows rolling submission, for example. So just last bullet here, we've now proven that we can overcome resistance to standard of care in MDS and actually also AML, but we will hopefully during next year have first data showing that we could overcome the resistance to PD-1s, which are the market leaders in immunotherapy for cancer. So actually, Faron as a business or investment case, Antti showed some nice slides of value inflections of biotechs. We're right there. This is the value inflection moment, basically. On the left-hand side, that's general acquisition value of biotech from depending on the development stage. And we're right there at the value inflection. And with this level of response already in the phase 2 is basically positive. This is no longer a binary investment. Is it positive or negative? It's already positive, basically, if you look at the numbers. And ultimately, what do biotechs usually fail on? It's safety or efficacy. We've treated over 250 patients. The drug is well tolerated, so safety is not a concern. And if you look at the efficacy, as mentioned, basically the phase 2 is already positive. So we're looking at a very exciting time here in the company. Thank you.
Thank you, Juho, and welcome.
Good to see you, Antti.
Please have a seat.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Okay, so let's start with the upcoming time points. You mentioned you have readout at the end of Q1, and then you have different time points then during next year, and at the end of Q3 you have a readout as well. Do I remember correctly?
Well, then around Q3 comes the duration of response, which will be very important for the FDA, and also survival data comes in. Survival data may take even longer because what we're seeing is patients seem to do awfully well on the drug and live a long time on the drug. So that's going to be continuously coming in as time flows by.
Okay. Can you describe a little bit, like now you're doing a readout of all of the patients, what will that data give you concretely to work with? And then you have the duration of response, so, and that's important for the FDA. And so what will you do then after that readout? Can you describe a little bit of this path?
Yes, so as mentioned, this is going to be a rolling process with the FDA. First of all, they're going to look at the response rate. It needs to be there. And in early development, especially in hematology, there's been drugs that had showed good response rate, but the duration of response has been short. With our drug, it's good, it's long, and also the survival. So FDA is very keen to see that the response rate, but then that the duration of the response lasts, and that has an impact on survival. That's what they're going to be looking at as we go into this process.
Yes. So then there's a question on the first-line patients. You didn't mention about those patients in the recent top-line readout, so or the top-line data. So are you planning to do some intermediate readout at the end of Q1, or what is your plan for those patients?
So frontline. So those who don't know, we're also recruiting frontline patients to size the phase 3 in the frontline. But that will come out around the end of Q1 as well.
Okay.
The top line readout for the first line patients.
About the same time or exactly the same time. Yeah, good. There's a question on funding. What is the approximately the extra funding required before partner deal, over or under 10 million euros?
That's a very good question, and it cannot be directly answered because the thing is evolving constantly as we speak. Maybe nothing, it may be 10, it may be something around that. But this thing is a dynamic situation we're in. But on funding, what we publicly stated is that we're actually funded until the beginning of June, but we have venture debt, which a lot of you are familiar with, IPF Partners from Switzerland. We're going to be hitting the covenant level around the time the phase 2 readout comes.
And I guess it would be fair to say that your data for discussing the partnership will be then much better at the end of Q1 compared to now the upcoming ASH. You will have more data and that will help you with the discussions, I guess.
That is correct, but ultimately, like I've said to the market actually, is that usually as the patient population grows, the response rate declines a bit. We have not seen that. It remains exceptionally high. It's looking awfully good on that front as well.
Yes. As mentioned, the overall response rate is 80% currently. Is it possible to comment on the quality of the responses? That is also very important.
Some of the new patients, they've been very short on the treatment, but on the quality, most of them are remissions, actual remissions, because also hematological improvement qualifies for a response. Mainly, we have remissions. We also do see hematological improvement in these patients, which is very important for the patients. But we hit basically a higher bar than just hematological improvement. We hit remissions.
Yes. There's another question on partnering discussions. So you previously mentioned that you have received some contacts and proposals. So is it possible to say anything about kind of the valuation or numbers regarding those contacts?
What I can say about that is that the core for a biotech valuation is the market forecast, which I gave some elements about. The most important elements were presented here. We're pretty eye to eye on the market potential.
Yeah. What could still go wrong? In other words, what are the biggest risks and pitfalls going forward?
I get asked that a lot, and to be really honest, it's getting more and more difficult to see what can go wrong. As mentioned, most important is safety. I would say that's bagged. Efficacy just continues each time we look at the data, continues strong. Doesn't give me a worry. To me, this is now a business case. It's not about the science, the data. It's optimizing the valuation, optimizing the business case. And the thing in pharma is money makes money, or in business in general, money makes money. So to have a strong balance sheet is likely to give us a better position.
Yes, and a question on SAB. How did you manage to get a scientific advisory board that you currently have?
That blows me away as well, because the thing is that having been so much in the industry, and I know that a lot of these pharma companies are after these same people, and they get a request every week basically, and they say no to everybody. But these guys come for something truly groundbreaking, something that will change how cancer is treated. That's what these guys come for, and that's what they've seen in this drug.
Yes. Have you been invited to JP Morgan conference?
Yes, we have.
Okay, that's clear. And there's one more question. So you already touched a little bit on the interactions with the FDA, but can you recap, like, what are the next interactions or known interactions with the FDA that you will have?
As soon as we have again the readout around the end of Q1, we'll need to package that up into it's called a briefing book, and that will be for the end of phase 2 meeting, and that's going to happen sometime in Q2. Lead times for those are usually a bit lengthy. So as soon as we got the data in hand, we're going to put that package together and submit to the FDA and request that meeting time.
Okay, and you showed also in your presentation the start of the phase 2/3 MDS trial. So can you go over through again? When do you expect the first patient recruitment if everything goes smoothly?
Yes, so we've laid this program or discussed this program already with the FDA, but at the end of the phase 2 meeting, it's also the phase 3 protocol that's being submitted, and they will have their input on the protocol. So we need to take that into account. As soon as that round of discussions has been completed and we take FDA's input into the protocol, we can start actually initiating that trial. But from the moment, basically the protocol is stamped, it's 6 months to first patient in. And that's still like an aggressive timeline. But from getting the FDA stamp on the protocol, 6 months to first patient in.
Yeah.
Usually 6 to 8, but I think because we got everything in motion.
Yeah, and it's fast track.
Yeah.
And then a question on today's report. So can you explain a little bit? Does it mean that you will kind of have a fast track type of status in the UK, or what does it mean?
Yes. Actually, it's basically the equivalent to a FDA fast track is this MHR iLab. It's a fast track for the UK, basically.
Okay. Okay, so those are all of the questions. I thank you, Juho, for presentation and discussion. Many thanks for you, viewers and listeners, and we'll be back next year. Thank you for listening.